Hi everyone, we're going to talk about one of your choices for your sculpture project, and that is working with clay to make a sculpture relief. First, I want to start with the different materials that you might use. I went to the Dollar Tree and I found you can also find a lot of this stuff at Walmart and different other places. But I went and I found this Silly Dough, which is great. It has a scent. So if that doesn't bother you, then you could use this, but one of these isn't enough. You'll need to do all three, and it could give you a pretty interesting color if you mix it really well. But if you just barely mix it, it can make a swirl type effect, and it would look kind of cool. So either one of these is not enough. One of these is not enough by itself. You'll have to use all three. You can also get a type of clay called Model Magic. This one's called Model Fluff. It must be an off-brand. But it is like working with a big marshmallow. And it doesn't allow for a whole lot of detail, but it will work. And one of these packages is plenty for doing this project. This type of putty here, Play-Doh putty, or just regular silly putty will not probably work because it never dries out. And actually what happens is if you lay it down on a piece of paper, it just slowly just goes flat. And so any texture that it would have in it would disappear. So this is not something that you should be using for this project. Play-Doh itself, real Play-Doh, which this particular package I got at Dollar Tree is very inexpensive, has lots of Play-Doh. One of these probably isn't enough. You probably need two. Mine is only this big, and if you look at it compared to my hand, it's about the size of the inside of my palm, and that's not a very big project. So I'm going to mix these two together to see if I can get something that looks a little like water since I'm doing a fish. One of the other options would be air dry clay. You can get a smaller container. It's about this big. This dries really hard, and so does the Play-Doh. It dries kind of like a rock, but you have to let it dry for several days to get there. But this will work great, and for the containers that you can get, one container should be plenty. So the other option is to make the Play-Doh on the stove, which is a great option, and it's a fun thing to do, and it's a great recipe to have to just do things on a rainy day. So if you use that, you could probably use about half of a recipe. You could use the whole recipe if you wanted to. So I've drawn out my idea on a piece of heavy drawing paper in my sketchbook. So I picked something that was pretty simple. This doesn't look as simple as I would like for you all to work with because I kind of got a little more detail than I need to in it, but you need to pick an object or something that's recognizable for me to understand that what you've done is good enough for your level of learning. And if you could have done it a couple of years ago, you aren't stretching yourself. I want you to push yourself to get a little bit better at everything that you do. And how you do that is to kind of reach where you've been before and go a little beyond. So I want to see you pushing yourself a little bit to get better at things or to try something new. So what I've done is I've traced my design. You could just draw it on regular copy paper. This is thin paper, and if I trace my design on the thinner paper, then when I put it on the Play-Doh or whatever I'm using, I can trace over this with a pencil and it'll leave a groove wherever I've traced. So I'm going to put this aside and I'm going to keep my drawing. I'm going to have a paper plate handy so that I can work on the surface of the paper plate. And it just so happens that it's about the same size as my drawing, so that'll be a really handy thing. I'm going to take my Play-Doh out and I'm going to take my white. This is what it looks like when it comes out of the container. And what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to take them and I'm going to put them together and I'm going to twist. And I'm going to twist and I'm going to twist and then I'm going to fold, and then I'm going to twist some more. And then I'm going to roll it into a ball. And I'm going to put it down on my surface, and I'm going to start mushing. Let me see which side I like better. Ooh, that side's kind of cool. I might mush a little bit more and twist. Let's see if I like that any better. Ooh, there's a good section. Maybe that's what I'll use. I'm going to, that looks a little bit like water, doesn't it? So I'm going to mush and push and flatten this, and it's not quite big enough yet. I'm going to keep going. Now, you can make this thin, but then you won't have much room to make the textures that you need for your project. So I'm going to make this, I put two together because if one would make my my Play-Doh a little too thin. So let's look at that. The thickness is about like that. That's still pretty thin. It's thinner than my finger. And now I'm going to make it kind of an oval, which is what I had decided for my shape. And I'm going to lay this on top, and it looks pretty close to the same size. Not quite, almost, hang on. I'm going to stretch it down here. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so now I'm going to put it on top. I'm going to flatten it a little bit more, and I'm going to get it really nice and flat. And I'm going to take my pencil, and I'm going to trace my design onto the clay. And what happens is, when you trace it, I don't know if you can see it right there, where I've traced this line, I get a little dent. So that I'm going to go ahead and trace my whole drawing, and then I'm going to come back. So what I decided to do was I traced the fish, and I traced the outside of the oval, and then I decided not to do this pattern over here because I can do just the fish and it's enough. So I'm going to pull this off, and I can see my lines in the Play-Doh. Can you see part of the fish right up here? And you can see the outline going around. And so I'm going to start with that. I'm going to look at my various tools that I have. And one of the tools is the end of a knife or this tip of a knife. I have a pencil, that the tip of the pencil is a really great tool, and an eraser. My end of my paintbrush has a really great point to it. You can use popsicle sticks, and you can use paper clips, and you can use the end of a pen for different shapes that you need. In fact, there's this wonderful netting that you can use that was on vegetables that I was able to use, and I could use that for the fish scales on my fish if I wanted to, if I could figure out how. One of the other things that I found at the Dollar Tree was this modeling set that was $1.25, and it has all different kinds of cool shapes and things that you can use. So as I get started, the first thing I'm probably going to want to do is I'm going to want to get that drawing back. And you cannot use a pencil and draw. What it does is it plows up the Play-Doh and creates a big blob as you go. So the best way to do it is to kind of lean. You notice that my pencil is leaning to the side, and it's still plowing up some Play-Doh here. So I'm going to have to lean it a little bit more. And I'm going to re-outline my whole drawing with my pencil so that I can see it better. Because right now I can see it, but I can't really see it very well. So this goes a lot faster than you think. As long as you keep your pencil laying down, it'll go better. Now with the fish, I don't think I'm going to use a pencil. I'm going to use this paintbrush and see if it makes a better, yeah, it's making a much better job. And if you'll notice, I just kind of go up and down very quickly, and it draws in the Play-Doh really, really, really well. So I'm going to do that, and I'll come back. So I've re-outlined my fish with my, the bottom of my paintbrush seemed to work the best. I tried a couple of different things. And now I'm going to start putting in different kinds of textures for different kinds of areas. So I think I'm going to go up and go a little bit deeper in my outside. I did run across a thing where I put in a line that I didn't like. So the way that you do that, let's say that I put in a line right here that I don't like and I want to get rid of. What I do is I take my finger and I just kind of pull it back across. And sometimes that works better than others. Sometimes you have to repair where you were so that you can see that line again. But it does work. So let's try a paper clip. And if you open up the paper clip, you have a tip. Let's see if it draws in the clay. As long as you lay it down, it looks like it'll draw in the clay, but you have to hold it like this rather than straight up and down. Straight up and down will give you lots of little points that could be kind of cool to put for a texture. If I want to make the lines in my fins, I might use this to do that. And if you think about it, we read about different ways and different places that reliefs were used, and the Egyptians used them, and the Romans, and the different people since then have used a lot of reliefs, and they are really popular, but you can see how long they would take to do a big relief, especially if you're carving instead of just kind of pushing down in soft clay. So when you get done, I should see areas that have different textures. I'd like to see at least 3 different textures used in your relief. So if I count these lines that outline my everything and that are used in my fins as one of my textures, that's 1. Now if I want to do my different scales in the fish, I could find something that is round and push it in to make little scales on my fish, and that might be 2 different textures. And then maybe for my water I would do another different texture. And so I might take the end of the knife and make my swirlies that I had in my original drawing. Now I can't make them as detailed as that, but if I want the textures to be different, to show different kinds of levels and differences in how the water moves and the clay behaves, and I want it to look interesting, I don't want it to look boring, then I might do that. And so if you see my textures, I have these textures here, and I have some rounded textures here, and then I have line textures. That would be the very, very minimum. You can put in a lot more textures, but I need to see at least 3 different textures. This is nowhere near done. I would work on this for probably another 30 minutes, maybe longer, to make it look really done. So I want to see your very best work. I want to see you taking in-process pictures all through your whole process. And you can change your mind. Like if I like this texture, but I want to add extra textures in there, I can go in and I can add. This makes kind of a little T shape. So that kind of adds a really cool little extra texture. I need to be able to recognize what you've done, and I need to distinguish 3 different textures on your design. So here's the relief that I've been working on a little bit further down the road, and you noticed I have 3 distinct textures. I have this texture out here, I have the line texture for the fish, and I have the curved little texture for the scales of the fish, and that's the minimum number that you can put in there. I also have eyes and things like that, but that still counts for the lines that are there for the outline. Make sure that you have a good enough close-up picture that I'm going to be able to tell those textures for your final picture. And I can't wait to see what you turn in. I can't wait to see that you get this opportunity to try this out.